everyone, and welcome to the episode of Faerie, Fable, Librarians. I'm Simona.
Katie.
And today we're going to be talking about Volume 1 of Webtoon, but also it has been printed and formatted, Lore Olympus, which is written and illustrated by Rachel Smith. So just to get that out there, there will be spoilers. I'm not sure where the ending of the book corresponds to the Webtoon, but just to be aware, there will be spoilers. So Lore Olympus is a modern retelling of the Hades and Persephone myth. So just a quick rundown. Persephone is a Greek goddess who was the daughter of Demeter, who's a harvest goddess. Hades is the Greek god of the underworld. And Persephone happens to be down. I'm not going to go into the whole myth. I don't remember everything, but just needless to say, she happens to be down there. She eats 3 pomegranate seeds, and because she has eaten something that belongs to the world of the dead for a certain amount of the year, which is why we have fall and winter, she's in the underworld. When spring and summer come, it's because she's back in the world above, and Demeter, who controls the seasons, is happy.
So you could have asked if I knew about the myth of Hades.
Sorry,
and
let me Katie, tell us more about the myth of Hades and Persephone.
Wow, thank you for asking me, Simona. I'd gladly tell you about the myth of Hades and Persephone. So, Persephone, as you've already been told, is the daughter of Demeter. She is not necessarily a goddess. She's more of like, I don't even know if you would classify her as a nymph because it's not specifically said, but she's also not really a goddess.
Oh, okay.
Because Demeter is the goddess of spring, the goddess of harvest. So Persephone is on Earth doing what she does. And Hades happens to see her. Hades sees her as this beautiful woman, falls deeply in love with her, and wants her for himself. So he takes her down to the underworld. I know in popular culture it says that she was kidnapped. That's popular culture. In the myth, she goes willingly.
Which is a refreshing change.
Yeah.
We'll be talking about some of these gods and their
Their
habits
shenanigans.
of abducting people. So that's a refreshing change.
Their shenanigans. And of course, Demeter is not pleased by this. Demeter wants her daughter back. So Persephone, in order to stay with Hades, eats the 4 pomegranate seeds. Then, as you said, that's the reason why we have fall and winter, is because Persephone is in the underworld ruling with Hades as his queen, and she comes back as like a compromise with her mother in spring and summer when she's not down in the underworld with Hades.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you. So that's the myth, and with this comic, it doesn't start off that way. So like in the comic, Persephone is, still the daughter of Demeter. However, she has lived a very sheltered life. Her mother means well, but is very overprotective of Persephone to the point where she micromanages
overprotective
every aspect of Persephone's life. And the only reason why Persephone is even able to be in Olympus is because her mother reluctantly agreed. Like, she's attending college on a scholarship, which I find to be very funny. And the scholarship, her keeping it is contingent upon her remaining a virgin. So the goal, well, not necessarily Persephone's goal, it's really her mom's goal, is that Persephone, once she graduates, will take her vows, become a virgin, or remain a virgin, not become one, she remain a virgin, and sort of dedicate her life to like purity and not really being any relationships. And I also want to say, as a trigger warning, and I won't be really talking too much about it, but I want to make people aware, especially if you're not familiar with the webtoon, is that Persephone is a victim of sexual assault in this story. And like I said, I won't be
keep that in there.
dwelling too much on it because I don't really want to, but it is an aspect of the story, and it does have an impact on Persephone and especially her relationship with the god who is responsible for the sexual assault.
It's Apollo, isn't it?
Yes, yeah.
That's what I thought.
So, in the comic, we meet the three brothers, Zeus, Hades, and Poseidon. For those who may not be familiar, but I'm going to assume most of you are familiar with these deities. So, Zeus is the king of the gods, Hades is the king of the underworld, Poseidon is the king of the oceans and the seas. They have a very amicable relationship. Zeus and Poseidon enjoy teasing Hades because he's a very awkward person. Unfortunately, his reputation precedes him, and he has a reputation of being very cold, almost like sadistic and evil, which he can be. Like if you read,
like a twirling mustache
yeah,
villain.
if you read the later like volumes, because I haven't really read the webtoon. Like I've gone along, I'm really like going on the volumes. You see that he is capable of that, but it's not really him. He's a cinnamon roll, that you just want to like hug because
wrap him in a blanket.
Yeah, because hug. He's a truly good person trying to do his best, but he has this reputation, and it makes trying to find a partner, which you can see that he envies his brothers and that both of them are married. And he wants that for himself as well. You also have Artemis, the goddess of the hunt. She's Persephone's best friend, and she and Persephone live together. And Artemis is the friend that everyone wants and needs. She's very protective of Persephone, but she also encourages Persephone to put herself out there. You have Hera, who is the wife of Zeus. And what I appreciated about this comic is that she's not the vindictive goddess of myth.
Well, Hera, I mean, she has a right to be a vindictive goddess.
She does,
in
but
the
like
original mythology.
Hera in myth has the nasty habit of instead of taking her anger out on Zeus, she kind of takes it out on the poor women that Zeus has decided to like
sleep
have
with.
Caught his fancy. So, but I like how the comic went a different route with this. Hera calls Zeus out because Zeus loves Hera, but he has wandering eyes and wandering other things, and he just. I'm not going to say can't help himself because he can help himself. He just doesn't want to. We have Aphrodite, the goddess of love and beauty. And we also meet we have Eros. I love Eros in these comics. He's such a good friend to Persephone. We have Apollo, Artemis's brother. And then we also meet, there are other ones, but these are some of the main gods. We have Hermes, who's like, he's ditzy, kind of dumb, but in a wholesome, like I just want to like hug you kind of a way, because he's such a good friend and such a good person to Persephone. So yeah. So when the story opens up, Hades is about to attend this event that's hosted by Zeus or Poseidon, or at least one of the two. He has a date, but I need notes in order to understand what's going on. I have a lot of pages of notes.
She wrote another summary.
I did,
it's
yes.
Not a note.
I can't help myself. I try. He is going to this event. The woman or
she's a
nymph that he wants to take decides, nah, I'm not interested. So he ends up going alone. And his brothers tease him for it because once again he's been stood up. That's when Hades spots Persephone, who has only gone to this event because
Demeter.
No, because
Artemis.
Thank you. Artemis has sort of said, "No, we need to go. You can't be in your house. You need to socialize." Hades sees her, and he's instantly sort of drawn to her and attracted by her because there's something about her like that he can't quite put his finger on, but he wants to get to know her more. But he's also afraid that because of his reputation, she isn't going to want anything to do with him. He makes the mistake of telling Poseidon and Zeus that she's more beautiful than Aphrodite. And if anyone knows Aphrodite, she is a jealous goddess. She prides herself on being the most beautiful. And of course, she doesn't like to hear it.
And in in Greek mythology, Aphrodite has a fling with Ares, but then it doesn't work out with Ares. So then she goes ahead and marries Hephaestus, and then she cheats on Hephaestus with Ares. So
it's a whole thing. So Aphrodite overhears it. She enlists the help of her son Eros, who's very reluctant, but he's very much a mama's boy. And also, you find out later there's a reason why he acquiesces to her every request. I'm not really going to go into it. I'm probably not for this episode, but there's a reason why. And she concocts this elaborate scheme. I thought it was going to go in a much darker direction than it does. Essentially, Aphrodite drinks too much. She kind of passes out. Eros takes her, puts her in Hades' car. As Hades driving, goes, "Oh my, there's a girl in the back of my car." He sees who the girl is, and he realizes, well, I can't just leave her. I don't really know where she lives. So he takes her to his house, and he proceeds to take care of her. He's very much a gentleman.
It's Persephone, by the way.
Yes, sorry, Persephone. Did I not mention that?
You
Sorry.
said you
Sorry.
only spoke that Aphrodite was an alcoholic.
So sorry. So Aphrodite talks with her son Eros and saying, "Okay, listen, I overheard Hades state that someone is more beautiful than me. This cannot be." Eros goes, "Oh my God, Mom. Oh my God." She says, "You have to do what I say." He goes, "Oh my God, Mom." Okay, yeah. He agrees to do what she said. So he takes Persephone, who's sort of drunk, puts her in Hades' car, and Aphrodite's logic is that she'll wake up, get so terrified by this hideous, strange man, and that it'll ruin any chance of them ever getting together.
That plan backfires.
So, needless to say, it backfires. And Hades and Persephone have such a cute interaction with one another, and I love how in the cartoon there's a marked height difference.
Yes.
Between Hades and Persephone. Persephone is also 19 years old. And I remember reading some reviews where people had issue with the fact that she's 19 and Hades is thousands of years old, but I was, whatever.
They're also gods.
Yeah.
And goddesses.
Yeah, but
they're
I guess
not human beings.
Yeah, but that doesn't really bother me. Like from what I've gathered, like I'm rooting for the relationship. And they develop this comfort around one another. I love how she meets Cerberus, and Cerberus for her is essentially a lap dog. It's the funniest thing ever. And also Hades collects dogs. Like you collect Pokemon. Like he has every dog. He's like, "I found this dog here." And it's like he grooms them. It's like the cutest thing. And like he does invite Persephone, like she accompanies him to a party. And volume 1 of the Bound comic ends, as I mentioned earlier, with Persephone's assault at the hands of Apollo. So
now, this is very on brand for Apollo in the myth. He's a womanizer, a woman chaser. That's why Laurel turns into a laurel tree to get away from Apollo. So.
Yeah. And so that's how it ends because, like, Persephone, I said she lives with Artemis, and Apollo is Artemis's twin brother, so he frequently visits.
Yeah.
Apollo is attracted to Persephone, but Persephone doesn't really give him the time of day. She's very polite and cordial, but she's not interested in going beyond that. And Apollo, with his ego the size of Texas, can't stand that. So Persephone, she still is a little tipsy. She goes to sleep, and that's when he comes in her room and he assaults her. What I appreciated, though, was that the writer and artist didn't linger on the assault. It's not graphically depicted, but you know what has happened. And
it's all
ends,
imagery.
Yeah, it ends there, and of course, that assault has consequences for Persephone's life. And it doesn't hinder her from being able to do things, but especially when she is around Apollo, you can tell that. There's a discomfort, there's a fear. So that's how volume 1 ends. Now, what I kind of wanted to talk about, and I don't know whether this was the author's intent, but the color within the comics and the use of color. I like how Olympus is a very modern city, modern lines, like the way everyone dresses.
That's not from what I've been seeing in other renditions of like Olympus. So like Katie Roberts' Laurel Neon Gods series also takes place in a modern a modern Olympus city. The gods are more like elected officials than actual gods and goddesses. And they're not. It's not. So that book series is very much for adults, when this book series is very much geared towards, I think, a young adult audience.
Young adult / maybe like yeah, I mean, because it's not overly graphic, but I would argue maybe older teen.
Yeah.
Yeah, definitely
Yeah, yeah.
older teen. Because it's not like there is a little nudity, but it's not like graphic nudity, but what is being described and the issues that they're talking about, especially since Persephone is in college.
Yeah.
I would definitely say
So this
older
is like
teen
a
going into new
a
adult. Yeah.
This is a new adult
comic.
book. But Katie Roberts' Neon Gods is definitely adult.
Yeah.
Definitely adult. But again, it's another rendition on the Greek gods and goddesses. It's a different rendition. It's like a different, a more modern Olympus. Olympus is a city.
Yeah.
And the only real difference is that they're not actually the gods and goddesses of Olympus. The name god, the gods' names are given to the people who are essentially holding an elected office. My brain moved faster than my mouth. I apologize. But yes, I love the splash. I love how like the color in this comic, it's not defined by the lines of like her characters. So like it's illustrated in like a splash of color.
Yeah. And there are scenes like in the later volumes where you see when they're down on Earth and the color palette is more natural in tone.
Yeah.
Because also they've assumed a human-like appearance. So
Yeah.
I like the distinction. And in this case, the gods still very much fulfill the functions that you would assume they would. Hades is very much responsible for nurturing souls, taking care of souls. In later volumes, it's very much a corporation and everyone which I find is hysterical. But in terms of color, and I don't know whether this was the intent of the writer and illustrator, but Hades being blue, so with blue, it usually denotes sadness, calm, responsibility. Zeus being purple, royalty, power, wealth, and luxury. And Zeus is very much all about those things. Persephone, pink, femininity, kindness, and affection. And Persephone embodies that as well.
So, I think it was intentional from the author to do it this way because just from those three, the way they're depicted here, I would say that is on purpose.
Yeah, Hera is yellow, so yellow, happiness, hope, deceit, optimism. And Hera definitely embodies that because she can show her anger, and I love that she calls Zeus out, but she still has this optimism. She still has this desire to be of help to others. I love her relationship with Hades.
Yeah.
And how they're very playful together, how she obviously cares about him and he cares about her. Poseidon being green, new beginnings, abundance, nature, peace. Also, Demeter is depicted as green. So there are a few characters, like even Apollo is purple. And, with his personality and his ego, the royalty, the ambition, like that matches with Apollo as well. So, like, again, I love the modern yet old feeling with the look of Olympus, because like with some of the outfits that the characters wear, I love the relationship between the three brothers. It's very realistic. I love how they tease one another. I love how Poseidon is the doofus of the group, but they still love him. Like where he says, like, what do I? There's a scene where like Zeus goes like, oh, they're planning something, and Poseidon goes, what do I do? And Zeus goes, you find the drinks. He goes, yay! And like he like gets the drinks. Like he's happy being the doofus.
He's happy. He's just happy to be involved.
Yeah, and I love how like there's a scene where like Hades, when he like first goes to the party, he's alone. He sees Zeus kissing Hera. Poseidon is kissing his wife. He goes, great. I'm the only one without someone. Hopefully no one notices. And they're like, oh, like where's your date? And he goes, like I love how they notice it. Hades having this threatening reputation, but as I said earlier, being a gigantic cinnamon roll. And like wanting to find happiness, wanting to like be a part of the crowd, but still realizing that his job is isolating. Like he deals with the dead. And in many cultures, people that deal with death are often separated from the larger society.
Because it's bad luck.
It's also considered polluting. I mean, there are societies that have a more intimate relationship with death, and the fact that death is just another passage in life. So like with Western society, especially in more recent times, we've sterilized death. Most people, like if our loved ones pass, everything is handled by like professionals, and then you see them in the coffin, makeup. But there's a lot of that distance with death.
Well, now I would just want to point out though too, wakes, from my experience, seem to be only like an American thing because they don't have not to get too far off topic, but when I was working as a camp counselor, we had a lot of international people come to work at the camp, and the majority of them were from the UK. And I had a camper in my group whose father unfortunately passed away, and we all went to the wake to pay our respects and to support the camper. Went through, I was fine, but everyone else was like really taken aback by it. And they were all telling me like, Katie, you were so good. You did that. That was a very good job. And I'm like, yeah, this isn't my first wake. And they're like, well, we don't have wakes in the UK.
Oh, okay.
So a wake, I think, is I don't want to generalize, but I believe a wake is only an American thing. Back in the UK, they don't have wakes. They have essentially a person dies, there's the funeral, and then there's a big party at the end of the funeral.
Yeah.
That's about it.
Yeah, and I think, and that could very much be like, I know my mom, when she was younger, because my family's from Sicily, the body of the person used to be in the home for a few days. So like, I think also, Hades' isolation has something to do with what he is responsible for.
Yes.
The death, nurture, like taking care of souls. And you can see that he takes it very seriously. He knows what his duty is. He knows that because he's the Lord of the Underworld, there will be that isolation. And Hades, even in the myth, like, I mean, I can't speak to as how Greek people viewed Hades. I mean, every god was supposed to be respected and feared to some degree or another. But, death is not something anyone ever wants to think of. So I don't necessarily know how popular he was in the Pantheon.
I mean, I think he was fairly popular in the Pantheon because if you think about it, ancient Greece, there's no modern medicine.
Yeah.
Anyone could die from anything. So it paid to be prepared.
Yeah. So, also like Persephone is also someone who I think at least in my opinion, one of the reasons why she bonds with Hades is because she knows what it means to have a sense of obligation and duty.
Yeah.
Because she's living her life according to how her mother Demeter wants her to live her life.
Yeah.
She's been very isolated. She doesn't have a lot of friends. She doesn't have a lot of life experience.
No. Which in my mind is more of a detriment than a help.
It definitely is. And I think you see it in later comics that her lack of experience does impact her life. Not in tremendous ways, but, she has to learn, how to properly deal with people. Like, she's very hands-on. And like at one point Hades has to remind her, like, okay, like you're being a little too forward or a little too familiar with me. Not that I think he minds terribly, but she has to realize, oh, I'm not back home with the other nymphs, like I need to be mindful of that.
Right.
I love also her how she's depicted as being insecure with her body type because she's very short, but she's also very curvy, and that comes up frequently throughout the comics, like her feeling that she's too curvy, she doesn't have the right body type. And also like her, once the assault happens, that's another element of her fear because she was like, well, I'm no longer a virgin. And, I'm using this scholarship. That will come up a handful of times. Her feeling of guilt.
Yeah.
Her feeling that she somehow caused the assault, which is something a lot of victims feel. And that is addressed in later comics as well.
Or later volumes.
Later volumes of the Bound comics. I like also the complicated relationship with Zeus and Hera. It's obvious that Zeus loves Hera, but he can't basically not stray. I mean, he can't help it, but at the same time, it's like it's part of his nature. Because if you know, like Zeus from Greek mythology, he fathers so many children with so many women.
Oh, one notable is Hercules. Another good rendition of Olympus that.
Yeah. Oh yeah, it's true. The Disney film, and I was also thinking about the color scheme in the Disney film.
Yeah.
Matches this too because Hades is blue.
Yeah.
Zeus is not purple.
He wears purple though.
He does wear purple. Yeah.
Hera is purple.
Yeah.
And Zeus is yellow.
Yeah, he's yellowish. But yeah, like in a lot of the myths, Zeus, it's like, oh, I see that girl chilling, braiding her hair on a mountain. Let me, turn into a bull and carry her off, or like a shower of gold. So like consent is not a thing in most mythology, Greek mythology, especially with Zeus. He doesn't even understand what the word is. So he's like siring demigods.
Yeah,
left.
I mean, we also have to take that into context though too.
Yeah,
because it's
ancient
Greece.
Yeah. The reason why I bring it up is because in these comics, the women he's having the relationships with, it is consensual.
Okay, well,
yeah. That was like the difference where like in this case, like one of them I think is a secretary, and she's definitely, the relationship is consensual, so he's not forcing himself on any of the women that he's having these affairs with.
Right.
Which is just a major difference from Zeus. Zeus doesn't really factor consent into any of his affairs. They're called affairs, but whatever. And I was even thinking of Poseidon and how, like, going back to Persephone, her feelings of guilt. Like when you think about Poseidon, when he in the myth, when he assaults Medusa, Medusa is she works for the temple
of Athena.
Is it Athena? It is Athena. And she is assaulted by Poseidon, and Athena doesn't tell Poseidon, oh my God, she inflicts her wrath on Medusa, who's the victim. So Persephone's feelings of guilt is sort of reminded me of that victimization of the women once more, even at the hands of other women. Yeah. It happens in mythology too. Like Hera will often enough inflict her anger, her resentment, and her bitterness on the women who don't necessarily really have a say in having any relationship with her husband.
Right.
Yeah. So, yeah, overall, like I really enjoyed it. Like I've read up to volume 4 already because like I really do enjoy this comic. I love the coloring. I love the art. I love the relationships between the characters and how it's explored.
For the most part, Hades and Persephone have, like, it's a really great depiction of a healthy relationship.
Yeah, because he's also dealing with his feelings of, like, worthlessness, and that's explored more, and I don't want to spoil anything, but you understand why he has these feelings as well in later volumes, or if you're reading the webtoon, you'll understand where he's coming from as well on a personal, intimate level. But yeah, I do love how Aphrodite's plan backfires, and it just makes Hades and Persephone get even closer.
Yeah.
Which Eros could have told her, but she really wasn't interested in listening to him.
Oh, I don't think she'd listen to Eros even if he was correct.
Yeah, but I just love the family dynamics within the comics. It's really fun. Were there any like last things that you wanted to talk, or anything in general that we haven't discussed that you wanted to mention?
No.
Okay.
I mean, I started reading this webtoon when it was on a webtoon. I think it was on Webtoon. Yeah. And I got up to the end of this bound volume when it was on the Webtoon, and then I guess I started reading something else, and I just never went because it was ongoing.
Yeah.
And I was reading something that wasn't ongoing, that was complete, and I wanted to come back. I never came back to it.
Yeah. It's still on Webtoon. I think the final bound volume, I think, is 6 or 7. But I think the writer did say the story has been completed.
Yeah.
And one of our colleagues mentioned that it's being adapted into an animated series, which
would be a lot of fun to see.
Yeah, I'm curious to see how that's going to go. I'm not sure what streaming platform is going to sort of take the series, or not take the series is another word for that. But I can't.
What direction
No, like what. Like if it's like, say for example, it's going to be Netflix or Amazon Prime.
Which pick up?
Yeah. So thank you for joining us for this discussion of Lore Olympus. In the comments, let us know if you're familiar with the webtoon, what you think about it. As always, like, subscribe, and we will see you next time. Bye, everyone.